Hassel here, co-host of the Nerdy Man Room Show. And we proudly present to you Man Room Shorts. Your discretion is advised.
We're going to jump over to our special interview with Mr. August Aguilar from Strange Film Studios, and we will see you back here in just a couple of minutes where we'll do Nerd Out.
Everybody, we'd like to welcome Mr. August Aguilar. He is the director of Strange Film Productions. He's done countless things, and so tell us a little about yourself, boss man.
All right. Thanks, Gary, David. I really appreciate you guys having me on today. I'm happy to be here. My name is August. I'm with Strange Films Studios. Strange Films I made back in 2016, so we've been at it for about 5 years now. Coming up, 5-6 years now. I started out with just films. It originally kind of stemmed by this idea of making a horror film for a horror film festival, and that's all really it was at the time. It was just like I have a background in film, somewhat, just kind of growing up playing around with cameras, and then in high school, and then actively studying it in college. So working with film and always having a passion for it. When I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, I saw that ad for the horror film festival, and I was like, I got to make one. I want to try. So I reached out to my father, Frank Aguilar. He's kind of like the co-founder of Strange Films with me, because me and him were originally the ones that kind of was like, we got our ideas together to make this first horror film, which ended up being There's Something Down the Road. And that film, when we shot it together, put it out there and got good reception from it, it just sparked this excitement and really kind of got my juices going, and I couldn't stop at that point. We were just like, oh, well, he had no script ready to go in Philadelphia, and that ended up being Center City. And then then I had another script that I wanted to do, and then I just ended up making another film. But then the films kind of it started with films, like I said, but then I just started kind of dabbling in all these other things. Like I'm very, very passionate about music and musicians. So I started reaching out to musicians, and I started getting really, really involved with the local music scene here. And I've done maybe almost a couple dozen different music video projects as far as live shows and actual music videos and different events and whatnot. And then, I started the Strange Films, kind of went from films to comic books, started writing comic books, and we made a couple comics now. We're working on a third one. We have original artwork, commissioned artwork from tons of different artists. We just have this huge gallery, a collection of different original artwork. We did podcasts at one point. It's literally just a multimedia production company now, and that's kind of where Strange Films at. It's we love doing horror genre because it's a fan favorite, and we have fun doing it, but it's really limitless. I mean, we can do anything, and I like to do different genres, and I like to do different kinds of projects other than films.
You guys have a huge melting pot that you got your hands into, just a little bit of everything.
Sometimes it's like too much. I'm like, what did I get myself into? I should have just stuck with one thing. But I can't help it. I love every kind of art, and I admire so many different artists. And when I have an idea, it's really hard for me to stop. So I end up talking with all kinds of other people. We just collaborate, and the next thing I know, I have some other new project out, and I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that, but here we are. Now I can't stop. I'm like, I got too many ideas out there, and so it's a big melting pot for sure.
Would you say that your love of art and comics and things of this nature will be what kind of bit you and give you the bug to be behind the camera as opposed to in front of the camera?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I never really had interest in being in front of the camera. In college, we had to do some stuff that required us to be in front of camera, and maybe one out of the handful I thought was fun. And there's a part of me that's like, it's still even today, like maybe I should try at least maybe another time, like go for it, because I have a buddy of mine, Blake Hall. He's currently writing a film. He wants me to be in the film, and I tell him every time, dude, I'm not an actor. I like to do everything behind the camera and everything, but he's really persistent on me being in front of the camera. So I'm like, man, maybe I should try it. But no, everything behind the camera, behind the scenes, like I love the making of things. And I love the actual finished product, and to know that I had my hand in that finished product, creatively, kind of like constructing. I like tinkering with things, so that's kind of like where I like being behind the camera versus on. I can on camera I get a little bit more shy and whatnot. Especially when it comes to like creating. If it's acting or whatever it is. So yeah.
I wanted to ask, just because you got your hand in so many things, though. What's kind of your creative process? How do you go through and decide, hey, this is a project we want to do and that I want to work on, and then how do you kind of flesh it out from there?
It really just depends, man. I mean, a lot of it's on the fly. A lot of it's like I just think of a random idea and I think it's cool. I start like really, really spinning the wheels about, can I realistically do it? And then I think about it in a realistic way, like a no budget way, local talent wise, like local everything wise. Like how can I, if I wanted to do it, how can I do it? And then when it comes to like actually getting it done, it's kind of just like, I throw some music on, I start writing it out, and then I just, if I know if it's written out and I know I can physically do it, then I'm like, all right, well, let's go for it, and it's really easy for me now at this point to be like, I can cast just about anybody I need to for a particular project. When we're talking about film, at least, and filming, it's really loose. It's like guerrilla style filmmaking. I mean, it's kind of like run and gun. Most of the time, it's one man band, which is me. I do everything as far as the audio, the video, the directing, and everything that goes to it. There's times. Don't get me wrong. There's times I've had complete cast and crew, which is awesome. I really appreciate when I have crew with me. But if it's something that I'm like, I don't want to spend too much time on, it's like I'll just do it all myself. And it's like I just it's kind of like I have to chase the ball and get it right now. Otherwise, if I don't, I'm gonna just be like, okay, wait, like I'll come back to it one day, And
Definitely don't have to worry about butting heads with a producer that way, do you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to like run into like an issue where I'm spending 3 hours just trying to figure out one little thing. It's just like, dude, we got to, especially because we are no budget and most of the time, and it's very indie, so it's kind of like I don't have a lot of time to spend on doing a lot of things. I'm going to find the most cost efficient, timely mannered way to produce anything. And then when it comes to like other projects, like musicians or anything, if I hear a good song, if I see a really cool live video or like a photo of like a local band or something, and then I dig into them a little bit, I find their music interesting, I'll reach out. I'm like, hey, I like your stuff, like what's going on? If you ever need anything, let me know. If you ever want to get together or shoot some stuff or whatever, let me know. And then that's kind of how that train rolls. The comics is more like, the comics is a really long-term plan because that costs a little bit more money and time and whatnot. My artist is a really, really great artist and great friend, Tim Cervera. But we kind of have a great relationship working on that. But it's very much more of a thought out and expense plan than just kind of like, hey, I want to do this right now and let's do it. But yeah, I mean, most of the time it's just like on the fly thinking, and then there's sometimes I drive a lot for work, so have a lot of time to think about other stuff, or if I experience real life events that sometimes inspire me, that triggers like an idea. There's just like a lot of the ideas either come from real life experience, random thoughts that come with extra time on my hands, or even watching movies. I find, or listening to like podcasts. If I listen to something interesting or watch something interesting, I'm like, but what if you did this? And then I kind of twist it and I turn it into a new idea. So that's kind of like a lot of that stuff comes from.
So you said you're in the Knoxville area?
Yep. Been here about since 2015. So
is it pretty easy to find talent, local talent there that's viable for whatever project you're working on, or do you kind of outsource, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like Knoxville is actually a really, really creative hub. I didn't think that when I first moved here, but it's tons of filmmakers, even more actors, lots of artists and musicians. It's a really creative town. It does have its own like social cliques, I think. So you kind of got to be in the right, avenue with it a lot of times. But at the same time, like I said, I am at a point now where if I was to put out a casting call tomorrow for 3 roles, I'd probably get like at least 40 different people hitting me up
Wow.
just within the area. And then even if I wanted to reach outward, I've had people within like the Ohio range, like Virginia, North Carolina, all those southern border states, like in that area. And we have a really big following in Philadelphia. So a lot of my following online actually gets confused with some of my stuff that I'm posting because they think I'm posting from Philly, but I'm actually posting from Knoxville. So they'll be hitting me up and be like, "Hey, I can do this." I'm like, "No, I'm sorry. I meant to say I'm in Knoxville. This is for Knoxville, not Philly." But because if I posted something for Philly, we'd probably have double or triple the amount of people trying to hit us up.
Oh, wow.
We've got a bigger following in Philadelphia than in Knoxville, and that's only because one, I'm originally from Philadelphia, and two, my dad, like I said, Frank, he still lives up there, so me and him kind of operate Strange Films between Philly and Knoxville simultaneously. So he produces up there, I produce down here, and when projects he gets arranged up north, I come up, fly up there, and go do them. When I have projects I produce down here, most of the time I just do it by myself. But sometimes on occasion he would come down here and tag along. But so we do have mostly those casting from local areas or regional is mainly just through Facebook. Man, we have a lot of Facebook different groups like film groups that I reach out in and just say, "Hey, looking for this," and they come running. Thankfully, I mean, if they didn't, I'd be really sad.
That's a good problem to have. I got to stumble upon you guys at the Atlanta Days of the Dead this year. That's kind of where I was enlightened upon you guys. And we're all out. How far out do you kind of go to go to these cons and things to do the film festivals?
Yeah, so the conventions are still relatively a new experience for me. But the thing is, COVID really screwed that up because like starting in 2019 is really when I was like, I'm going to do conventions every year now. Like I'm going to get Strange Films at a booth at every city I can. And we're going to just like promote our stuff and actively, as we're doing work, bring it to these conventions and, get new audiences. Because what I found was when we were hitting comic book art or the film and the comic book audiences, we were doing really, really well and gaining a lot more followers. So I was like, these conventions are going to really help because we have a lot of comic book people that come to these things. We have a lot of film people that come to these things. So this is a perfect spot to do it. So in 2019, I think I only did 2, but I did, and they were locally and regionally. But I hit up like maybe a dozen different ones at least that I bought a few tables at, and then I reached out to others that I actually got hooked on as a guest. Like I was going to be featured as a guest, have some films play, have a table and everything. And that was between like Chattanooga. I think one was in North Carolina, and then others, like I said, I was going to be getting spots around in Kentucky and Georgia. Just I was trying to hit the regional southern border states just because I didn't want to drive 12 hours somewhere. If I can drive somewhere that's like within 6-hour range easily, then that's a great for me, But then COVID hit, all those stuff. I mean, everything for the year and the year and a half calendar that I had booked was gone. And then we had a kid, so now and I'm very thankful and blessed and everything. But that definitely put me back. Took some time away from Strange Films again, as well as dealing with COVID. So now that kind of things have settled somewhat, I'm like, all right, let's get back into the convention scene again. So we did CreepyCon back in August of last year here in Knoxville, and then I did Smoky Mountain Fan Fest in Gatlinburg this past year as well. And then I did the Days of the Dead, which worked out really in the benefit of being able to set up as a convention table as well as being a filmmaker, because I really just submitted for a film in there. But I guess to answer the question thoroughly is like I submit more to film festivals around the country and the world than I do for conventions. I'm working on trying to get my convention game up as far as regionally and nationally, but it just requires a lot of time and money. But the film festival is great because it does require some money to submit, but most of the time, well, a lot of the times I've been fortunate enough to be accepted in a lot of film festivals around the country. So I've been to like Long Beach, California, Chicago. So a lot of these places I visited, but the others I didn't. But Chicago, we've done a lot up north, a lot down south in Florida, Georgia. I think Illinois was one. So a lot out west, Los Angeles, and so a lot out west, north, south, and then locally, regionally, in this area. The film festival game is kind of where I really hit, or try to hit at least most of the time. And if I can travel to it, I definitely will. So one of like the coolest experiences was we got to go out to fly out to Long Beach for our horror film Cindy's birthday party, and it was a horror convention at the same time. So it was just like a lot of fun to be around that community and see our film play in Long Beach. But yeah, so we've been fortunate enough in the film festival area, but the conventions we're still working up. Hopefully next year or two, I'll be able to kind of travel a little bit more and have my have a few more under my belt, by then.
What would you say would be your market, so to speak? I mean, are you primarily staying with the horror during your films, or are you kind of like branching out into suspense, or trying your thing? I can tell by Butch Beer. I mean, you definitely got a little comedy under your belt, because I got pretty tickled with your Butch Beer commercial. So I mean, what would you say you want to stick with, or do you just kind of want to fill out into everything?
So that's kind of like what I was mentioning earlier. It's kind of the problem with the melting pot that I've got, right? So it's like when people look at Strange Films, especially with our logo and the majority of horror films that we've done, they think we only do horror films, which is great. A lot of people, there's a huge horror community, but I do a lot more than horror. I love doing other stuff, like comedy for one. I actually really love doing dramas and indie films. Like I love doing that kind of stuff. Musicians and like music and documentaries and stuff like that. Like I do things in that area. There's other genres I love to play with and that I have passion for that I want to work on. And there's scripts that I have that are just way outside the horror genre, and I'm gonna do, but I'll probably just still put it under the Strange Films banner because I've built it up so much,
It's established.
yeah, it's established. Why would I? I don't want to confuse people by just like constantly producing stuff under different names. Or I mean, I could put my name, I guess, but Strange Films is so established that I want to keep that name going. But I just want people to know that Strange Films is like A24, like A24 does all these different kinds of genre films. And a lot of them are weird and kind of intense or whatever and bizarre. And then there's a lot that are like really indie and really cool drama stuff. There's like a lot of artsy kind of films in that banner. But like, I don't think they would ever limit themselves to one particular kind of film. Now Blumhouse, they do mainly horror, and that's great. That's like their signature. Strange Films will probably be known as doing horror stuff, which is cool. If I can keep producing, cranking out horror films that I'm really happy and passionate about, then I'm happy that people know us about that. But I definitely have other genres that I'm passionate about, other stuff I want to do, and things I'm currently working on that are way outside the horror genre, or they'll have a sprinkle of strange in it, but they're not necessarily a horror film, So, but Strange Films is kind of just like my A24. It's my production house, and it's got all these different like layers underneath it that I plan on just producing everything underneath.
So definitely trying to avoid the Full Moon Studios niche.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I always said that I didn't want to be like labeled as like a Wes Craven, where you just only do horror movies, because I've got some drama stuff out there, and I've got some indie stuff out there that I've gotten a lot of praise on locally, not, but people like that kind of stuff, and like I'm really fascinated by personal stories. I'm really fascinated by people in general. I'm really fascinated by stories that move you, and these kinds of things. You know, when I get interested enough about it, I want to make stories about, or I want to tell stories, like share someone's personal journey and stuff like that. So whether it's a documentary or it's something I write based off my own experience or things I've witnessed or heard or just something I thought about, like these things, like they intrigue me enough where it makes me feel like it's a passion of mine, and I want to be able to tell those kinds of stories in a visually impelling way. So yeah, I just don't want to be known as the horror guy, because to be honest, I love horror movies, I really do, but it's not my favorite genre. It's like, you know, I'd probably watch a comedy 10 times more than I'd watch a horror film. You know, I love comedies, you know, and I really love indie stuff, but you know, horror is just fun. I love doing horror movies because I can just get wild with it and be a weirdo, and you know, and I love my 70s 80s like influence style. So I you know, I really try to run in that vein and kind of have fun and be passionate in that sense, versus I don't want to just be scary just to be like stupid scary. You know, I want to. Is probably a core to the story more than most of the time than just making some random thing. So yeah, definitely don't want to be completely labeled as just like a horror director.
Yeah, and Hassel, David over there, he's our bigger horror fan than I am. What I saw of your work, it was the first thing that he passed to me, which was Raven. But what's some of your other projects that you're really, and yeah, I got paper and pen here because I got to write them down so I can go watch some of them. But what's some of your other projects you've done that were, you know, that you, I know they're all like your children, right? It's like, how do you pick your favorite child? But what's some of the ones that you would suggest to go watch? Especially, I like documentaries, so I'll admit that up front.
So it's interesting. So Raven is our newest film, and it's awesome. I'm actually really happy with that film, how it came out. And it's not, it's kind of in that horror genre, but it's really more in like the thriller, like kind of dark drama film. And I think
it felt very psychological.
yeah, and see, that's kind of, I love going in that direction. You know, like if something can kind of creep you out, but at the same time you're more like just like intrigued by the character and the psychological aspects of it. That's really where I love to be at. But so another film you should check out, and that's probably our number one favorite, Center City. It's a all Philadelphia film based. We shot it all around Philly in Center City directly. It's a black and white film noir, original jazz music that our good friend Mike Raymond Jr. He was 15 years old at the time. So when you listen to that music, it's really intricate, really sophisticated, and it's like, I mean, it's amazing jazz. And he wrote and orchestrated all of it. And he was 15 years old. It's amazing.
Wow.
But that, yeah, it's amazing. It's and that film has gone on to win several awards, been featured by the Philadelphia Film Society, featured on numerous different radio and podcast shows. We've got 4 different films that's it's attached to, there's a Center City series, I should say. So there's 5 films in total. The 5th one is still in production, but there's 4 films in total out currently. But Center City is the one you want to start with. That Butch beer commercial that you watch, that is, if you watch that character Butch, he's in Center City. So like,
okay.
that guy, he's in Center City. He's in his own film called Butch. He's in another music video I did by Whiskey Effect. He pops up in all these other films. But Center City, it's not a horror film. It's a crime drama. It's a crime like thriller noir. And you watch it, and it's like, like I said, it's not horror. So I'm telling a story with these characters that it's in this crime drama vein, and it's black and white and this jazz, and it's a really beautiful kind of feeling. I feel like with the city and everything in the background, a lot of that stuff is kind of, like I said, kind of what I look for. Another film I'd say is Pandora. That was a film I did back in 2020, which is crazy because it's only 2 years. But it's a very much of a thriller kind of film. I watched Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler in theaters like 2 weeks before that, and that film got me on such a high. I had to go make a film that made me want to do a non-stop anxiety-inducing like thriller, like where it's like moving consistently. And Pandora was the inspiration, or what became from that inspiration. And it's not a horror film. I mean, there's weird things in it. You know, there's probably some really bizarre, strange like themes or elements in it, but it's not a horror film. It's just a thriller, and it's in the vein where I'm trying to get like, I guess if you watch some of my later films versus my early films, I think my directing, my writing is kind of going in a direction where it's like I'm really trying to get grounded with my storytelling and driving it where you're constantly trying to wonder what's going on, you know, then just being completely just, you know, blinded with the horror or whatever I'm trying to do. But yeah, so Pandora, Center City, let's see, Raven, and then the documentary. If you watch, if you YouTube stories of George Monterano, he is, you can even Google him, George Monterano. He's got his own Wikipedia page too, but he's a let me try to word this right. Let's see. So he went to prison like 35, maybe almost even 40 years ago for trafficking marijuana. And his father was like a mob boss, or a mob guy, I should say, a mob guy in Philadelphia, Long John Monterano. So his family is kind of mafia related, right? So when he went to prison, it was a non-violent offense. He just got, he trafficked some weed, went to jail, but he got the longest sentence for a non-violent offense in like in history at his time. So he was with isolation, like in solitary, and he was a stellar inmate. He taught classes. He wrote dozens of screenplays and novels and poetry. He actually stopped a hijacking in one of these transports. They were transporting some prisoners. He stopped the hijacking and everything. But they kept putting him in solitary just because of his name and whatever he had ties with his family and all this stuff. Anyways, ended up being Obama's time in presidency. And he passed this new law where they pardoned some criminals for nonviolent offenses, and he got pardoned by Obama, and he got out of prison, and now he's an activist. He's an activist for people who go to prison for marijuana charges that are nonviolent. He's an activist for like against guns and violence in general. He's like I said, he's still like an author. He writes, he does poetry, he does conventions, he does all these amazing things. He opened up a hemp shop in Philadelphia. He's opened up all these different shops. He has like his own beer brand and all these different things. Like he's a beautiful, well-spoken, creative, one of the most brilliant minds I've ever had the pleasure of like experiencing, as well as getting to know. And me and him have a really, really great relationship and love for each other. And he really respects me, and I really respect him. And I'm one of the few people he actually lets really, really close in to kind of like document a lot of the stuff he talks about and does. And I'm really honored and privileged to do that. So if you look up stories of George Monterano on YouTube, currently I think there's only like 5 or 6 videos out there. But that's kind of somewhat the narrative that we were going in the direction at the time I was filming with him. Just kind of telling his story and how his outlook on life and creative stuff that he does. So I like doing stuff like that, like I like hearing compelling stories and hearing, people, like good people talk about good things and stuff like that. Really inspires me.
Oh,
Well, it's extremely incredible that he can stay positive through all of that. Most people will become bitter,
Man, it's amazing. It's really, really sad because like if you just hear the stories that he tells sometimes, like you go mad. You would go mad being locked up in solitary. Like he couldn't even tell what day it was after being in there for like 30 days at a time. Just like, he lost a lot of opportunities to see his family. I think maybe like seeing his daughter born, like all these different things. And like a lot of different wild things that like they just like treated him so poorly, but he found light out of it, like he really did. He stayed in a positive manner where he was able to not only be a positive influence for people within the jail that he was in, the prisons he was in for people, but he inspired himself, and he wrote like, I mean, I've got one of his books upstairs that he gave me and signed for me, and it's amazing. Like I read the book front to back. It's so well written, and it's powerful. It's like, and he's written tons of stuff like that. Like just and he's just like a really really creative guy. And like if you listen to him speak, it's like he's telling stories that you can visually see, and you're feeling every word he's saying. So it's an amazing human being. He's on Facebook. He's on YouTube. He's probably got his own website. I mean, he's all over the internet. So if you just look up George Monterano, you can just kind of even get, if you just look up a couple of videos of him, you'll just get like a sense of like who this guy is, and he's really inspiring. He really is. So I'm hoping I get to see him soon. We got plans hopefully to see him this year, and I'll kind of maybe get another video or two out of him before I have to go back home. So
that'll be cool. Yeah, I'll look that up after we get done here this evening. But I had a question about being behind the scenes and behind the camera and stuff, because I can tell you we do this show, and it's the two of us, and it's maybe 2 hours a week, and then it's another 2 hours of editing. For you to do an entire movie or film or short or even the comics you do and stuff, that's got to be a lot of behind the scenes work and a lot of hours put in. How tough is it to get some of that done sometimes? And
I mean, sometimes it's really hard. I mean, it's a mental game. You got to like commit to it. It's like I think the good thing about it is that I love it so much. It doesn't really feel like work until it gets like hour 8, and I'm like, holy, like I'm tired. I'm like, I need to like kick back, like I need to take a break. But like for the most part, I mean, it's just I've got so much passion behind it. It doesn't feel like I like doing it, like it doesn't make me feel like I hate, oh man, like I got to do this, like it's gonna take so long, take so much effort, like I like getting my hands dirty with it, and I love like creating. So it's not like something that I dread, but I am human, and I do need my own like mental breaks, and I've got my own other stuff going on, so I do have to like figure out like the proper times to do things, and then spend time with my family and spend time with myself and this and that. So
because a wife will stick her head down there sometimes and say, hey, it's time to shut it down.
Especially now having a child. Hey, honey.
yeah.
Minutes of sporadic editing, and then I got to go back, So, but for the most part, though, when I'm filming, especially, right? So, a lot of the times, I'm going to say for probably 80% of my films, I've shot in one day. And sometimes, like Raven, it's 26 minutes long. A lot of people will take like 3-4 days to just shoot something like that long, like because they want to take their proper time to do that, which is great, and I think you should. But I shot that in 9 hours just because I didn't have the time to. I didn't have 2 days. I didn't have 12 hours. I didn't have a huge crew that I could count on. I have one opportunity to do things, and most of the time I do it in a very short amount of time, and I work like that. But it's like a pressure that makes me, I guess, maybe act swiftly and efficiently to do it real quick. And then when I'm done with the nitty gritty stuff, and I can take my own time to edit and breathe, then yeah, I can take my own time to do that. But the thing is, like, I'll break it up in sessions. Like my first editing session, maybe like 2 or 3 hours, just kind of sorting out the footage, organizing everything, watching everything back. And then I don't even edit it. I'll just like take a step back. I'll take a day. I'll kind of think about everything, and then I'll go back and do another 2-hour session of just kind of starting the editing process. And I think it's all about balance with whatever you do. It's if now, don't get me wrong, if I'm in like a really, really big groove and I can go 4, 5, 6 hours doing something, hell yeah. But most of the time, I don't have time to even do that. So I take my time allotted. Like you said, you got 2 hours to do this, and you got 2 hours to edit. I know I got 2 hours to edit here. I'm going to take my 2 hours. I'm really going to enjoy myself. I'm going to crank out as much as I possibly can. And then it's okay for me to take a step back because I'm constantly thinking about the next step later on after I get done. And then I'm eager to get back to it. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I just dread going back to that editing session. It was like, I'm excited. I've thought about the next step of the edit. I'm going to go back and do it. The writing comics and stuff like that, like that's a really long-term process, but most part, it's already kind of written out. It's just kind of like, when do I have an extra $50 to send to my artist to pay for, the art, and then write the next page so I can send him another $50. That's more of a financial thing. We're going to probably be launching a Kickstarter the next month or two to finish this third comic out, because we've done 2 Kickstarters before with the other 2 comics, and they got overfunded with a lot of tremendous support working on these comics. But I've probably put more of my own resources into this third one than I did with the previous 2, just because I've been working on it for a lot longer. But now it's kind of getting close to a finishing point, and I'd like to go ahead and put it out there to see if we can get it, finished faster than me spending the rest of the year trying to get it finished. So we'll probably do something like that. But yeah, I mean, spending time on things is I guess it's a mental game. Sometimes I'm just not, a lot of life stuff is going on and I can't get to things, and it's just it's overwhelming to even think about trying to do something creative. But when I'm in the mood and I know I've got something on my plate and I'm happy about it, I'm excited about it, it's not a burden, it's a challenge, and I love challenges and I love getting at it, and I love, because I know what the outcome is going to somewhat look like, and I'm excited because I want the world to see it. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I just try to find balance with making my time as valuable as it can be for myself and my family. So.
And do you feel like it's kind of maybe a little more liberating knowing that, okay, well, knock this out in one day, versus knowing, okay, I got 4 days of shooting, and maybe overthinking and reshooting things that you wouldn't have reshot before, but that, just because you had extra time?
So I guess if I had the extra time, I mean, it'd be wonderful to be able to plot out everything and plan accordingly and everything like that. And then if I feel like I missed a shot later after even all that, I'd be like, oh man, how did I do that? But a lot of times it's I do it in one day or something. I feel like as quickly as I'm thinking of everything for the most part, but every time, 95% of the time, I know I missed something, and then I realize later on, but then I just somehow make it work, because a lot of the times we improv too. We do a lot of improv when we're shooting. We're just be like what I tell all my actors is, here's a script, but just make it your own. If this dialogue isn't reading right to you, then you can improv it up. You can do whatever, ham it up, whatever you want to do.
Become the character.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're nailing the tone, as long as you're getting the point across, as long as we're moving this story forward and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing within this page, I don't care how you say it or what you do. Please enlighten me. Share with me your own personal take. And then sometimes we'll be looking at something, and I'll, because a lot of times I'm shooting at a location where I've never been before also. And I'm shooting, and I see something in the corner of my eye. I'm like, that looks cool over there. Why don't we try this? And then somehow we create a whole new scene sporadically, randomly, and then it ends up working. And the stuff that I missed, it's fine, because whatever we randomly shot on the fly between actors improving or us improving an action or a location or a prop or something like that, kind of helps fill that gap, So if you watch Pandora, that's probably my most highly produced film. I mean, I had a really great DP, I had a really great audio guy, really great lighting, everything behind that stuff. It was kind of a challenge for me because I wasn't used to doing having all that. So when the DP is setting up a shot and it takes more than 15 minutes, I'm getting angsty. I'm like, dude, just take the camera on and just
Ready to action.
yeah, like, come on, let's just shoot. And he's like, no, he's like, just trust me. I'm like, okay. And I'm glad I did, because obviously it looked great, and it's amazing, when you watch the final product. But it's even then though, like I said, me and him, we met beforehand. We talked about the script and everything. We laid out shots and all that. But even after we did all that and I'm editing, I'm like, oh, I think we missed that. I think it's just like, it's natural to kind of maybe miss something or miss an opportunity or do something like that, especially when you're this low budget or indie. But you just kind of have to roll the punches and then creatively think of, how to get through it afterwards.
So out of all the, whether it's writing, producing, directing, or casting, what would you say is probably, if there even is one, that's typically the most difficult one to do? If that question even made sense. It did in my head when I started it.
Probably the most difficult would be, I don't know, like writing. I think writing is harder than directing for me, because I love writing and I get excited about writing, and I'll write a ton, but it's always a challenge to kind of finalize the writing, like actually get through the writing process. Like, dude, I'll do a 60-page script and I'm like working on page 65 and I'm at work and I'm like, wait a minute, I have another idea. What if I did this instead? Because I'm stuck at page 65. I've been thinking about it all day, and I'm like, what if I did this instead? And that would make sense, and then I can move forward. And and then I go back home and I'm rewriting, and I go back to like page 30 and I'm rewriting from that. I erase everything. I'm rewriting, and then I'm at page 44 and I'm like, dude, this doesn't make any freaking sense. Like, what am I even doing? I erased all my work, and now I'm pissed because I can't even finish the script. And I'm like, like I do that all the time with like different ideas, whether it's a short or a feature or anything. So like writing is like, you're your own worst critic. It's like you're like, no matter what you write, you think it's probably crappy, or you think it's cheesy, or you think it's hard to get through and this and that. But I'm learning, like, you just got to plow through it. You got to just like stick with your gut, stick with your original idea. And no matter how hard it gets, if you're stuck at that page 8 and you got to get to page 10, write something that's completely off guard and then just keep going and finish it. And then you can go back later and try to tweak it, because if you never finish it, you're never going to finish your script, right? So it's like writing is just so hard because it's a mental game itself. It's like you're just going to be judging your own writing as you're going. And I do that all the time. I mean, it's taken me a long time to be confident in what I write. And probably the last 2 years is what I've been learning to just like, just stick with my gut, stick with my concept, and just get through it. And then after I get done with it, maybe show it around or do a second edit is kind of when I can really craft it to the next draft it needs to be at. When it comes to directing, I mean, I get in my element, it's like, I'm not gonna lie, it's really intimidating when I walk on set. I get really nervous. I have to drink like a Red Bull. I gotta get my own space. Like, I have to step away from everybody for like 15 minutes, like psych myself up. Like, it's a really, really daunting experience. And then I'd say probably my first 5 or 6 takes, I feel really rough. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But then it's just like, it clicks. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, let's do this. And I'm like, it's like I can't stop. Like, I'm like,
you hit that zone and you get into your little level.
I feel like I'm right in the middle of it. It's like maybe I don't even know really what I'm doing, but my body and my mind's doing it for me. And I'm just like, and I get in the zone and I have a lot of fun doing it. And from what I've told, I've had great experiences on set with everybody I've worked with. And they say I just kind of go into a different place and I start directing. And I love doing that. It's like, it's a really daunting experience at first, but once I do it, I know I do it like in this natural instinct kind of way. writing is never a natural instinct. I'm just like, let's see if this sounds good, and and then I'm lucky sometimes it does sound good, but I've got tons of scripts that probably don't sound too good.
I could feel you on that one because I would struggle I could come up with a plot, but you ask me to write dialogue for somebody and we're done. I'm through right there. I don't do dialogue. I don't know what to say. I can barely make it up myself half the time what I'm saying.
I feel like that's the burden of creative people though, because like we used to toy around with writing comics and stuff, and like Monster, he would come up with a plot or idea, and I would always, do the sketching or whatnot. And I would probably throw away more than I ever kept, and I'd just be my own worst critic. I'd be drawing, and like even now, like I'll occasionally sketch or paint something, and my fiance will see it, and she'll like, I'll get frustrated and I'll throw it away. She's like, "Why'd you just throw it away?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "What? I sucked. It was the shits." And she said, "Now that looked really good. Why'd you throw that away?" I was like, "Well, it looked like shit to me, but now it's trash because I done balled it up, So that's."
Yeah, I mean, it's true. No matter what we do, I mean, like, even some of my first like edits when I'm editing the film, like, I'm like, oh, this looks like shit, and I have to like work that out or show it around a couple times before someone's like, no, you're on the right track. Like, keep going. I'm like, okay. But like writing, yeah, it's that is, and I've heard this from so many different writers across the board, and I listen to a lot of different creative podcasts where it's the same like concept. I mean, it's so hard to like accept what you're writing and be confident with what you're writing, and dialogue especially. I mean, honestly, I'd say I'm more confident with dialogue now than actually like plot. I used to be strictly plot, but now I love writing dialogue. I think because my motive with writing dialogue is like, what would I love to see or hear in real life, but I know is not going to happen. It's like what would some person I would in my script, if I can write this person's going to say this because it's so offbeat and so wild and bizarre or uncensored that I know is not going to happen when I go to the grocery store or go wherever I want to go. Like that, I can write that in the script because that's what movies are about. It's like you can apply really crazy conversations in real life situations in film that you would fantasize in real life, but you won't ever see. So it's like I have a lot of fun doing that now. But yeah, you just gotta. I think we have to all, as far as creatives ourselves, we have to have one little sliver of confidence that just allows us to be okay with what we're doing, no matter if it's good, bad, anything. Just to be able to say, "Hey, I did this." Maybe show it to a friend, fiance, partner, anybody, and say, "Hey, that's what I did." I don't know how I feel, but do you like it, or should I keep going, or this and that, like, because it's what I did. It's like, and we have to have. I think we have to have a confidence with it. I'm starting to learn. I've learned that a lot more recently than I ever have, but it's hard. I know it's hard.
Yeah. So most of what you've produced, I'm assuming, has been under the banner of your strange films, and that sounds like that's more of a labor of love than it is an actual work. So, do you think you'd ever want to do a feature film for a large studio or something, or is that just like at that point it becomes too much work and it's like, that's work. That's not my labor of love anymore, right? It's like you said earlier, you feel like it's not really work what you're doing now. If you were to do it for a big studio, you think it would be now it's work, so it's not as fun anymore.
If Jason Blum ever wants to call me and say, "Hey, direct Blumhouse picture," like, I'm there.
If you were to get that call though, say for a reboot or anything, what would it be? If you could just choose, say the rights were out the window and you could just choose, you know what, this is my guy, I'm going with this.
Dude, I don't know, man. I don't know. Honestly, like, I think I would ever avoid any sort of reboot or franchise because there's just too many fans that love that shit, and like, I never ever want to put myself in a situation where people hate me because I did whatever to the film. You look at any Marvel director, Star Wars director, Scream, Texas Chainsaw, any horror franchise, dude, like, they get ripped to shreds by the fanboys because they just, you fucked up the characters, you did this, you did that you made it modern. You did this. It's like, what do you want from me? You know, like and most of the time they're good. You know, I understand some criticism, absolutely. You know, I've got definitely some retro roots in me and character wise, but I think I would always want to avoid a franchise because unless like, no, I don't know. I think I want to avoid a franchise. I would want to keep it. I would like want to do an original story, whether it was my own or somebody else's. I'd be more than happy to direct someone else's like story if they believed in me just as much as I believed in the story. I mean, it would take. Don't get me wrong. There's a high interest in doing like an original or like a new take on like something like Scream or like a Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that. I would love to be able to fantasize about that, but the actual act of trying to do that, probably not.
Because look at the poor bastards that had to reboot Elm Street. It's not that everything was terrible with it, but they just got crucified.
It's been like 12 years. They're still talking shit about it. Like, I feel bad about the new Texas Chainsaw because you know, I didn't love it. It was fine. You know, it was like, I didn't like hate it, but I didn't love it. But like, people are just like, dude, just ripping it to shreds. And I'm like, man, you know, like at least they went for it. You know, I'm happy to see Leatherface. You know, like it's been a while.
See, I found it actually fun, and I didn't think I would because, you know, I'm a purist when it comes to Leatherface. You know, every year at Halloween, I have an expensive Tommy mask that I wear, you know, and I scare the shit out of the little children. I chase them with a real chainsaw and things of this nature. So, you know, I'm 6'4", you know, 3 bills, so I fit the part. So I didn't think I would enjoy that as well as I actually did because I went into it like with low expectations, and I said, it is what it is. And the liberties they took, I was like, but it was an enjoyable little, you know, film.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, it was fun. Like, there was a lot of parts that were fun, and I didn't hate it at all. I just like, you know, it wasn't like a film that I'm like, man, I can't wait to rewatch this new Texas Chainsaw. No, probably not. You know, but like, there's a lot of films like that, and I think that's okay. Like what was it? Malignant that came out recently. You know, like, see, the thing is, I actually really liked it, and I thought, yeah, because I thought it was just a lot of fun. I just thought, like, as campy as it was, I was like, dude, this is the most punk rock thing ever. Like in 2022 or 21, whatever it was, I was like, this is awesome. I'm like, I like this chick is batshit crazy. Like, I had a lot of fun watching it, you know, and so for me, having fun with that, but then hearing a lot of people are like, oh my God, that movie was awful. It's like, oh, you're just never going to win with horror.
Yeah, it is a very divided fan base, especially on that. I remember being stoked for this movie. I was like excited. And then me and my fiance, we were sitting here like the day it drops, like, we're watching this. You know, I got my mixed drinks. I'm ready. We got it turned on. And the first time I seen those little hands and everything, and I was like, what the actual fuck did I just see? I mean, I felt like I was watching Basket Case in 1983 or something. It was, oh man, it was. But it had a lot of fans, and I mean, I've heard rumors of a part two.
See, it's just so weird how people perceive horror and movies and everything, but when it comes to franchises especially, I know there's like that, just you gotta be on one side or the other. It's like, I just want to avoid that. I'd rather take the.
But isn't that the fun part of horror sometimes, how divided the fans are?
Yeah, for sure, you know, and that, you know, what I love about the horror community too is no one hates each other for having those thoughts. They just like, it's just fun to conversate about them, you know, like.
Yeah, we'll shit all over each other, but we'll watch the movie together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It can be a shitty, you know, horror movie on, but we're all watching together, and we'll have our conversations about it, and it's just a good community to be a part of, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as big studios, I don't know. It's like, I think because I do read a lot of horror stories where it's like they got indie directors who came in and made a big film for a studio, and it was absolute hell, you know, like just they weren't used to that kind of like work or the people or the demands, all their like all the stuff they want, like the creative control behind it, was just completely shot. Like I think Gareth Edwards is like an example of that, and some other directors I know, like I just know that's like a story. So I think it would have to be a studio that would allow me to bring my own creative vision and somewhat flexibility of freedom, creative freedom in it, and trust me entirely to do it. I think if a studio called me and was like, "Hey, we're going to give you, we trust what you're doing, but we want to make sure you're going in the right direction," I would absolutely be like, "Yeah, I'm trusting you to help me get to that, like for sure." But I think like if you're taking the integrity out of the creative director, in the first place, then why hire them? It's like that. So I would want to avoid probably all those major studios that are doing those major Hollywood films. Like I would love to do like a indie studio like that's actually got like a budget and producers and stuff like that's doing their thing, but they really believe in the directors they hire and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of where I always wanted to be, though. I never really wanted to be like Mr. Hollywood. Like I don't really find that fascinating. I think it's cool to fantasize about, like everyone does, but like I think if I was able to make movies and make some money off of it and tell stories and really create fan bases and stuff like that, like that's where I want to be. I would love that opportunity to be on that higher ground doing those kinds of things, but I don't want to ever do it in that pretentious way, as well as losing my own like creative touch, integrity, and also feeling like it is like a awful job versus having fun with doing it, So
Yeah, because I feel like if someone comes in there and tells you, "Okay, we want you to make this movie, and we really love your main character, but instead of being A, we would like him to be C."
Yeah, and change
and you make this work.
Like change everything about him and then direct him. It's like what? Like I think James Gunn is a good example, dude. Like they let James Gunn do just about anything he wants to do with whatever, and he's with both Marvel and DC, but he's done so many indie projects before that. Like they really trust him with his not only direction but like his character writing and his dialogue and everything like that. That comedic and serious, fun tone that he always delivers on any of his projects. Like they do a really great job just letting him like be himself within his movies. You can always, if you watch a James Gunn movie, you can see like that same kind of tone in it. And I just think like if studios let directors do that, then I'm all for it. Like I'm totally down for it. If they trust you in that direction, I mean, if you're not like, I don't want to be an amateur filmmaker and go into a studio that they're like, "Hey, we've got $1 million project here." If I read the script and I'm like, "Dude, I'm not qualified for this. I don't want to do this." Like I don't want to do that, be in that position. Like, no, you're going to do this. Like, I'm good. It's fine. Like, I'll go produce my $0 budget film over here. But if they're like, "Hey, we got $1 million. We really, really like what you do. It might be a little bit more outside your bounds, but we'll work with you and help you out and make sure that we can guide you in that direction. But at the same time, put your touch on it." Fuck yeah, let's go. Like, I'm excited, man. Like that inspires me. But yeah, we'll see. Probably never, but who knows?
Oh, never say never.
Never say never.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Wind it down a little bit. I see the old beer bottle in your hand there. So, are you a beer or a whiskey man?
Dude, beer. I can't drink whiskey. Ugh. I've tried, man. I've tried. It's like the older I get, I'm like, man, maybe this is the year I can drink whiskey. No, dude, I just can't do it. I like rum, but no, I stick with the casual beer. I don't drink whiskey. It just knocks me back. I can drink like Crown Royal a little bit, but again, that's like I gotta have like a little bit of dash of Sprite in it or something like to make it go down. Yeah.
Hey,
you can always make a hassle and get you.
You
You can always make a hassle and get you some Crown Black and some Diet Dew.
There you go.
It'll level you off.
There you go.
Yeah. A full strength Mountain Dew is about as strong as mine's going to get.
Oh, there you go.
But I know we've tied you up for an hour here, and you have a family and everything too. So we didn't want to take too much of your time. But I did want to say, hey, while we're here, can you share with us any new upcoming projects you've got coming out and that you want to promote or that you want to make sure we're on the lookout for?
So, like I said, well, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been awesome. I really thankful for that and taking the time. But the other, I don't really have anything particularly new to promote at the moment, just because it's been kind of crazy year. We just moved into a new house and everything. So, as far as recently new is Raven, our newest film, Raven. So we've got that out. It's on YouTube. It's been doing pretty well as far as a film festival circuit goes. It's been out in LA. It's been in Philly, and we had like a sold out theater in Philly. It was just in Atlanta, Days of the Dead. It's going to be playing in New Jersey this weekend, that's like April 10th. I'm not sure when this will come out, but it's like this upcoming weekend of April.
Yeah, we'll have it out by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest of this week. So
this upcoming weekend of 2022, it's going to be New Jersey, where we're nominated for like 5 different awards, which is fucking awesome. I'm like,
it is.
About that. I didn't expect that at all, but we're like nominated for like best director, cinematography, editing, actor, and short film. So really, really excited. Hoping we pull a few awards. That'd be amazing. We got reviewed by like Film Threat online. That was a really, really good review. So it's just doing well, and I'm happy about that and whatnot. But my wheels are turning. They've been turning for a while. So like I said, I'm kind of in my unfinished basement right now. But within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be having this kind of set up as my recording studio and Strange Films like little office. So I'm going to be. You can probably look out for a few different things this coming year in the next few months, which will be, I'm launching a couple different podcasts, film-related podcasts and music-related podcasts, and we'll have our 3rd comic book out, hopefully by towards the end of summer, maybe beginning of fall. We'll have our 3rd comic out, and then I guarantee we'll have at least a couple different films out, just depending on when and where, but we will have some sort of films out, and hopefully if once I kind of, like I said, get my bearings together here, like it's kind of like I know I'm going to be hitting the ground running. So I know in Knoxville I'm going to be producing a couple different things. I've already got some people lined up for, and then in Philly my dad has been working on some things. We're trying to finish Center City 2 up right now, so we might be doing that this year, and then he's got another original like a horror or thriller film that we've been wanting to do. So yeah, I'd say at least couple different films at least, the comic and some podcasts, and who knows, man. Like I said, if I think of something and I know I can do it, I just do it. So just keep up with Strange Films on Facebook or strangefilmstudios.com or on our YouTube page, Instagram, any of those. You can kind of see the updates, and we'll just go from there, man.
And thank you for plugging those, because I am terrible at the end of the show about asking about those, because I usually start off with them because I know I'll forget them by the end.
No problem.
But and hopefully you can come back on with us again before you have anything new coming out, or if you got something you just want to announce, we'd be glad to have you come back again, obviously. I mean, this was a very fun interview.
Anytime, man. If you guys ever just need a filler, let me know. I'm just happy to chat in general. So
next time maybe we'll get you to talk about that comic book a little bit.
Yeah, dude, I can bring them. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Anytime you guys want to talk, I'm definitely down. And if I have something concrete kind of coming out or lined up, I'll give you a heads up. And if you want to plug it, dude,
absolutely.
I'm always happy to just talk, and anytime I can help you guys out too, I'm happy to do so. So yeah, so I appreciate it again. Thank you very much.
We appreciate it, and thank you for coming on with us. And again, we definitely want to have you back again, because this is very fun for us. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that interview. It was very fun for us to do. Very personable gentleman, great energy. We had a lot of fun talking to him. We're going to try and have him back on again pretty soon when we can work that out again. But